I used to believe that childhood love was the purest kind, the kind that grew quietly, unnoticed, like a tree that never questioned the sky above it. His name was Ethan, and we grew up on the same street, rode the same yellow school bus, and shared the same dreams before we even knew what dreams were. Our parents used to joke that we were inseparable. Someday, his mother would say with a gentle smile, you two will realize what everyone else already sees. Back then I laughed. Now those words echo like a warning I didn't understand in time. Ethan and I promised each other everything. College, marriage, a small house near the coast. We even named our future dog. It all felt inevitable, like the world had already agreed. Until the day he changed. It didn't happen suddenly. It never does. First, he started answering my messages late. Then not at all. Then he stopped looking at me the way he used to, like I was home. When I asked him what was wrong, he said nothing was. When I cried, he said I was too emotional. When I begged him to talk, he said he needed space. And then came her. The new girl in his life wasn't cruel. She didn't need to be. She was ambitious, confident, and came from a family that opened doors Ethan had always wanted to walk through. She had connections, money, influence, things I didn't. The breakup was clean, too clean. I've outgrown this, he said, eyes distant. You'll understand someday, but I didn't. I just broke. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I watched him succeed from a distance. New job, new apartment, new life. I stayed where I was, holding the pieces of a past I couldn't throw away. The worst part wasn't that he left. It was that he never looked back. I avoided his street. His favorite cafe, his name. But pain is patient. It waits where memories live. Every Christmas song hurt. Every childhood photo felt like betrayal. I blamed myself for being ordinary, for loving too deeply, for believing promises meant forever. Then one evening everything shifted. I was leaving my second job when a familiar car pulled up beside me, black, elegant, silent. The window rolled down. And there she was, Ethan's mother. She looked older than I remembered. But her eyes were the same, sharp, observant, and unsettlingly calm. She studied my face for a long moment, as if measuring how much damage her son had caused. You've grown stronger, she said quietly. I almost laughed, almost cried. I've been watching, she continued. What he did to you, what he became. I said nothing. I didn't trust my voice. Then she said the words that changed everything. He thinks he won, but he forgot something important. I looked at her, confused. He forgot who taught him how this world really works, she said, and he underestimated the one person he hurt the most. She opened the passenger door. Get in, she said. I want to make you an offer. Not love, not pity. Her eyes met mine, steady, deliberate. Revenge. The car door closed behind me, and for the first time since he left, I felt something other than pain. I felt power. Chapter 2. The woman who watched in silence. I didn't expect his mother to be the first person who noticed I was breaking. Everyone else saw what they wanted to see. Friends saw a breakup. Relatives saw a phase. He saw relief, but Mrs. Carter saw damage. She had known me since I was 14, back when I waited outside their house after school, pretending I wasn't counting the seconds until her son came home. She was the one who offered tea when I cried over exams, the one who smiled when I talked about dreams bigger than our town. And now, years later, she was the only one who noticed that I no longer spoke in full sentences. I ran into her at the grocery store on a gray Sunday afternoon, the kind of day where even the sky looks tired. She looked at me once, just once, and her hand froze on the cart. You've lost weight, she said quietly. I smiled. The kind of smile people use when they don't want questions. I'm fine. She didn't argue. She just nodded and said the words that cracked me open. He didn't deserve you. I laughed too fast, too loud. You don't have to say that. I do, she replied, because I watched him destroy something beautiful and walk away like it was nothing. We sat in her car for nearly an hour. I told her things I hadn't told anyone. How he cheated. How he blamed me. How he said I was too emotional. Too ordinary, too replaceable. She listened, not as his mother, but as a woman who had once loved the wrong man too. When I finished, she didn't comfort me. She offered me truth. My son will regret this, she said calmly. Not today, not tomorrow. But when he realizes what kind of life he chose. I wiped my eyes. Regret doesn't help me. No, she agreed. But power does. I looked at her, confused. She turned the key in the ignition, eyes forward. You loved him, she said. So you broke quietly. I don't want you to break. I want you to rise. That was the moment everything shifted. Over the next weeks, she became my unexpected anchor. She introduced me to people, helped me find work I never thought I could do, pushed me to stop apologizing for taking space. She didn't help me out of revenge. She helped me out of justice. One night, as we sat across from each other in her kitchen, she said something I'll never forget. One day he'll look at you and realize he lost more than love. He lost control. I didn't want revenge, but I wanted him to feel what he made me feel. And slowly, with her guidance, I began rebuilding myself into someone he would never recognize. Not louder, not crueler, just unreachable. Chapter 3. The Woman Who Knew Everything. By the third week after the cafe meeting, I realized something unsettling. Mrs. Carter hadn't just reached out to comfort me. She was preparing me. We met again, this time at a quiet riverside park where winter sunlight filtered through bare branches. She sat beside me on a wooden bench, hands folded, eyes calm in a way that only comes from someone who has already survived their worst heartbreak. You still blame yourself, she said softly, not looking at me. I swallowed. If I had been better. Richer, stronger. She raised her hand gently. Stop. My son didn't leave you because you lacked something. He left because he lacked character. That word landed hard. She turned to face me then, and for the first time, her composure cracked. Not into anger, but into truth. You think you were the only one he betrayed? She asked. I looked at her, confused. He's been lying his whole life, she continued. To you, to me, to himself, she exhaled slowly. I protected him for years, covered for him, believed his excuses, and in doing so, I helped create the man who destroyed you. The wind rustled the river's surface. I felt something inside me shift, not rage, not sadness, but clarity. Mrs. Carter reached into her bag and pulled out a thin folder. I didn't come to you for forgiveness, she said. I came to give you the truth. Inside were documents, emails, financial records, messages, proof of how he had used my ideas, my savings, even my emotional labor to build the life he later walked away from. He didn't just leave you, she said. He stood on you. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. He's getting married in 6 months, she added quietly, to a woman who thinks he built everything himself. I laughed bitterly. So what? I expose him. Ruin the wedding? No, she said immediately. That would only make you look like the bitter ex. And he'd still walk away clean. She leaned closer, her voice low and steady. You don't destroy a man like my son by shouting the truth. You destroy him by becoming the truth he can't escape. I looked at her. What does that mean? It means you rebuild yourself, she said. With intention. With power. And when he looks at you again, not as the girl he abandoned, but as the woman everyone respects, that is when the regret begins. I shook my head. I don't even know where to start. She smiled faintly. I do. Over the next weeks, Mrs. Carter became my quiet architect. She introduced me to people she had once helped behind the scenes. Investors, mentors, women who had rebuilt their lives after betrayal. She never asked for credit, never asked for revenge. This isn't about hurting him, she reminded me often. It's about returning what he stole, your future. One evening, after a long meeting, I caught my reflection in a dark window. For the first time in years, I didn't see a girl waiting to be chosen. I saw a woman becoming undeniable. Still, late at night, doubt crept in. What if he never noticed? What if he never cared? Mrs. Carter answered that fear without me ever saying it aloud. Men like him always look back, she said one night over tea. Not because they miss love, but because they fear what they lost control over. She met my eyes. And when he does, you won't need revenge. His realization will be enough. As I left her house that night, snow began to fall, soft, quiet, cleansing. I didn't know it yet, but somewhere across the city, my childhood lover was about to hear my name again. And this time it wouldn't be whispered with pity. It would be spoken with respect. Chapter 4. The Price of Silence. I didn't recognize myself anymore. The girl who once cried quietly into her pillow had learned how to walk with her head high, how to speak less and listen more. Pain had taught me discipline. Betrayal had taught me patience. And his mother, Mrs. Carter, had taught me strategy. Revenge doesn't need noise, she told me one afternoon as we sat in her sunlit kitchen, steam rising from untouched cups of tea. It needs timing. I nodded, even though my heart still trembled when I heard his name. Ethan, my childhood lover, my first promise, the boy who once swore he'd never let go until he did. Without even turning back, he had moved on publicly. New girlfriend, new smile, new life. I had disappeared quietly, but disappearance, I was learning, could be power. Rebuilding in the shadows. Mrs. Carter helped me enroll in courses I'd never imagined affording. Business basics, digital marketing, contract law. She didn't push, she guided. You don't rebuild to hurt someone, she said. You rebuild so you never beg again. Weeks turned into months. I worked late nights, fingers aching, eyes burning. Some nights I cried without knowing why, just exhaustion leaking out. Other nights I slept with a strange calm, like something inside me was finally aligning. Ethan never noticed. He was busy posting happiness, but happiness posted is often borrowed. The first cracks. It started small. A deal Ethan bragged about fell through. A sponsor quietly backed out. A friend stopped returning his calls. He laughed it off publicly. But I saw the signs, because Mrs. Carter showed me where to look. People don't fall from cliffs, she said softly. They step back without realizing the edge is behind them. I didn't touch him directly. I didn't need to. I simply stepped into spaces he took for granted. When he looked for me, one evening my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hey, is this you? My chest tightened. I didn't reply. Minutes later, I heard you're doing well. I'm glad. A lie. He wasn't glad. He was curious, unsettled. Mrs. Carter glanced at my phone and shook her head gently. Not yet, she said. Let silence do the talking. So I stayed silent, and silence screamed louder than any argument we'd ever had. The truth I never knew. That night, Mrs. Carter finally told me the part of the story Ethan never had the courage to. He didn't leave because he stopped loving you, she said, voice steady but tired. He left because he was afraid you'd outgrow him. The words hit harder than any insult. All those years I thought I wasn't enough. Turns out I was too much. A different kind of strength. I stood at my apartment window later that night, city lights blurred by rain. I wasn't smiling. I wasn't angry. I was calm. For the first time, I understood that revenge wasn't about breaking him. It was about becoming someone who never needed his apology. And somewhere, deep inside, a quiet promise formed. If he ever looked back, I would be unrecognizable. Chapter 5. The Offer That Changed Everything. The rain hadn't stopped since morning. It traced slow, tired lines down the cafe window where I sat, staring into a cup of coffee that had gone cold long ago. My phone lay face down on the table, silent for once, as if it too was exhausted from carrying memories I didn't want anymore. I hadn't expected her mother to call again. Yet there her name was on the screen, glowing like a question I had tried to avoid for years. I answered. Come see me, she said softly. There are things you deserve to know now. An hour later, I stood in front of a house that once felt like home. Same white gate, same jasmine plant near the door, but everything inside me was different. She opened the door herself. Time had touched her gently, but grief had not been kind. Her eyes, once sharp and judgmental, now held regret so heavy it looked painful to carry. You've grown stronger, she said, stepping aside to let me in. I had no choice, I replied. We sat across from each other in the living room, where I once dreamed of a future with her son. A future he shattered without hesitation. I didn't invite you to apologize, she said quickly. I know apologies don't fix betrayal. That surprised me. I invited you, she continued, folding her hands together, because my son lied. To you, to me, to everyone. My breath caught. She reached for a file on the table and slid it toward me. Inside were documents, messages, dates, names, proof. He didn't just leave you, she said. He used you, your trust, your silence, while building a life he never planned to share with you. Each page felt like reopening an old wound, but this time I wasn't bleeding. I was seeing. I protected him, she admitted, her voice trembling. Because I was his mother. But I was wrong. I looked up. Why tell me now? Her eyes met mine, steady and determined. Because he's about to get everything he wants, she said. And I want him to lose it. The room felt smaller. What are you saying? I asked. She leaned forward. I own 30% of the company he's trying to inherit quietly. He thinks it's safe, untouchable. My pulse quickened. And you? I asked carefully. I'm tired of watching him destroy good people, she said. And I believe in balance. In consequences. Then she said the words that shifted my entire world. I want to give you my shares. Silence fell between us. That's not possible, I said. Why me? Because, she replied, you're the only one he underestimated. My mind raced. Revenge had lived quietly inside me for years, but I had never planned to act on it. Not like this. I don't want to hurt him just to feel better, I said honestly. She nodded. Neither do I. I want him to face the truth, publicly, professionally, completely. I stood and walked to the window, watching the rain blur the outside world. For years, I thought my story ended when he walked away. But standing there, holding the proof of his lies, I realized something terrifying and powerful. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. I turned back to her. If I do this, I said slowly, I do it my way. No lies, no shadows. A faint, relieved smile crossed her face. That's why I chose you, she said. As I left the house, the rain finally stopped. The sky didn't clear, but it didn't need to. For the first time since my heart broke, I wasn't surviving. I was rising, and somewhere out there, the man who destroyed my childhood love was about to learn that some ghosts don't disappear. They come back stronger. Chapter 6. The day the truth turned against him. The morning arrived without drama, yet something in the air felt final. I stood by the window of my apartment, watching the city wake up, cars moving, people rushing, unaware that today, someone's carefully built world was about to collapse. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry either. I was calm. That scared me more than rage ever could. For years I had been the one carrying pain quietly. The one who stayed silent while my childhood. Lover rewrote our story to make himself look innocent. He told people I was too emotional, too weak, too dependent. And they believed him because he spoke confidently. And I stayed quiet. But silence, I had learned, was only powerful when you chose it. Today I was done choosing silence. His mother called me just once that morning. Everything is in place, she said. Just be present. You don't need to say much. She didn't sound cruel. She sounded tired, like a woman who had spent years protecting a son who no longer deserved it. The event was supposed to be his moment, a public announcement, a partnership reveal, a celebration of how far he had come. I arrived early, dressed simply. No dramatic entrance, no expensive show-off outfit. I didn't need attention, I needed timing. When he walked in, confident as ever, our eyes met for a brief second. He smiled. That smile used to destroy me. Today it meant nothing. As the hall filled with people, investors, friends, media, I felt a strange sense of distance. Like I was watching a movie I had already accepted the ending of. Then his mother took the stage. That wasn't part of his plan. Her presence alone shifted the room's energy. She spoke slowly, clearly. About values, about integrity, about how success built on lies eventually eats itself from the inside. He laughed nervously at first, until she said my name. The room went silent. She didn't expose him with anger. She did it with facts, documents, timelines, quiet truths he had buried under charm and confidence. She spoke about betrayal not as gossip, but as responsibility. I didn't interrupt. I didn't accuse. I simply stood there, visible proof that the story he told was incomplete. His face changed, not into fear, but into disbelief. He hadn't expected her. That was the moment I realized something important. This wasn't revenge fueled by hatred. This was accountability delivered by love that had finally reached its limit. As people whispered and questions filled the room, I felt something inside me loosen, like a knot I had carried since childhood finally untied itself. He looked at me again. This time he didn't smile. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel smaller under his gaze. I felt free,